Tonight, over 30 people killed in simultaneous attacks on 4 communities in 2 local government areas of Zamfara state. Unconfirmed number of students abducted after gunmen invaded a private university in Kaduna. Gunmen stormed police station in Uzuwani, local government area of Enugu state, killed 2 personnel in their attempt to repel attack. And at least 22 COVID-19 patients die in hospital in India after losing oxygen supply to their ventilators following a leak. Plus, business, sports, news from Abuja, and later, international news from our London studio.
On business news tonight, federal government restates commitment to the growth of micro, small, medium enterprises through effective policy implementation as it seeks to boost the nation's GDP.
On sports news tonight, International Olympic Committee insists potential Tokyo state of emergency in Tokyo will not affect Olympic Games.
And from the nation's capital, House of Representatives to investigate arbitrary acceptance fees imposed on new students in public tertiary institutions in the country.
It's another day of rampage by gunmen, with attacks reported in various parts of the country. From Zamfara state, where over 30 people are said to have been killed by bandits in 4 communities, to Kaduna in the northwest, where another school abduction occurred. In the north central, gunmen also swooped on Zazaga community, where they set ablaze a military base after facing stiff resistance from the troops. And gunmen continued their raid of police stations down south, killing 2 personnel in Enugu state. All this comes amid more calls by the Senate for an increase in the funding of the army to better position it to tackle the numerous security challenges. We begin from Zamfara, the murder of 30 persons in simultaneous attacks on 4 communities in 2 local government areas of the state. It's the latest undoing of gunmen terrorizing the northeast. The state governor, Bello Matawale, has condemned the attack, describing it as barbaric and callous, with a promise not to relent in efforts to crush bandits who refuse to repent and toe the path of peace.
Zamfara state government delegation arriving Gobirawa following Tuesday's attack in that community, and Rini, Gora, as well as Madoti, Dankule in Bakura and Maratun local government areas of the state. The mission is to sympathize with the people and assess the extent of the mayhem unleashed on the communities following the killing of about 30 people and livestock in the affected areas. Some members of the delegation described the attack as barbaric, while sympathizing with the people. They say the government will no longer sit and watch criminals have a field day.
This very powerful delegation that you see, we're here to sympathize and to assess the damages. And the governor, he assured that, inshallah, he will bring the attention needed to the community for palliative, for their relief. And inshallah, I'm assure you that the more security will be deployed here to ensure the protection of the life and properties of the communities.
His Excellency, the governor, the government of Zamfara state is condoling with these people, and drastic action will be taken in order to ensure that this area is more secured and that the community will engage in farming very soon. So the government is highly concerned, and it will deploy adequate security to ensure that the farming season is not disrupted.
The sole administrator of Bakura local government area and this resident of Gobirawa community gave an account of what transpired during the attack.
We prayed for 17 people in Rini, and I think about 10 people in Gora Namae. A number of people, different number of people, because there are 2 things that happened actually. The first attack that led to the killings of about more than 20 people, and the reprisal attack that leads to the killing of more than 10 people as well. That's by the NSAK. So the number totals about more than 30 people killed in totality.
The gunmen came in large numbers on motorcycles, which are uncounted. They rounded off the villages and were shooting sporadically, which led to the killing of 28 persons in the affected villages. Aside from those who were rushed to the hospitals, they also burned down houses and other valuables.
With the assurances given during the visit, residents of the affected communities are hoping that those words will translate into action as they look up to the state government and the security agencies to bring a halt to the attacks on them.
And 2 months after their release, victims of Government Science Secondary School, Kagara, Niger State, say they are still haunted by the torture they went through in the hands of their abductors for 10 days. According to them, they keep having nightmares, but the state government says it plans to provide psychosocial counseling to the victims. Our correspondent Emperor Simon has been following up on the Kagara abduction and filed this report. Well, we'll bring that story to you very shortly. In the meantime, another police station has been attacked by gunmen, this time in Uzawani local government area of Enugu State. The attack reportedly started at about 2:30 a.m. and lasted for about 1 hour. 2 policemen who attempted to repel the attack were shot dead and the police station burnt. The State Police Commissioner has ordered the immediate deployment of the command's operational and intelligence assets to identify and apprehend the gunmen. The Commissioner says the attack happened without provocation.
Good morning.
Well, from the southeast to the north, gunmen suspected to be kidnappers have abducted some students from Greenfield University, located along the Kaduna-Abuja highway in Kaduna State. This latest incident is the first major attack on communities around the Kaduna-Abuja highway since 300 female soldiers were deployed to the general area in January this year. Eyewitnesses say the gunmen shot sporadically before taking some of the students away, and that the school is said to be populated by 40 students with inadequate security. A staff of the university was killed by the attackers.
Yesterday, Tuesday, 28th of April, 2021, at around 8:30 p.m., we received a distress call that armed bandits were attacking Greenfield University, located at Kasarami village of Kaduna-Abuja route. Troops and other security agencies were immediately deployed to the institution, but they did not come in contact with the armed bandits because the bandits escaped. But unfortunately, staff of the university was killed by armed bandits. Furthermore, unspecified number of students were kidnapped.
3 workers on a construction site in Akoko Northwest and Northeast local government areas of Ondo State have been abducted. The State Police Command says 2 of the abducted workers are from the southwestern part of the country, while the 3rd one hails from Plateau State. The State Commissioner of Police has ordered a detachment of policemen to the area to search for and rescue the victims and also apprehend the abductors. According to him, other sister security agencies such as the Nigerian Army, the National SCDC, as well as local hunters, are also involved in the operation. Staying with security, a retired Commissioner of Police, Mr. Emmanuel Ojukwu, has warned that the recent attacks on police and military formations are a prelude to terrible things to come, if not nipped in the bud. Mr. Ojukwu was a guest on our political program, Politics Today. He insists government must take the matter more seriously before it gets totally out of hand.
The problem is that the police know where they are. The criminals know where the police are, but the police does not know where the criminals are and where they're coming from. The criminals live within our people. They live within societies. They are fed. They have families there. They have their informants, and they have their collaborators. So it requires it devolves on Nigerians to pick their phone, either by SMS or by call, call the nearest police station. I noted this movement toward this area, and police will act. They are not magicians, and because they are exposed, they become easy targets because they are wearing uniform, their location you know, somebody is moving by a vehicle and opens fire on policemen, kills a good number of them, and nobody says hello to them, to their families. There are issues. So it behoves on Nigerians who are the victims, who are suffering this insurgency, this banditry, these kidnaps, and these attacks, to collaborate, to give information to the police, other security agencies, when they notice any untoward movement. These attacks are a prelude to something more sinister. And that's why I'm saying that the security agencies, intelligence departments, need to put their hands together and look inwards and find out the modus, not just modus operandi, but the motivation. What is the intention of this group? Do they want to make Nigeria a failed state? Do they want to create so much fear and panic everywhere? Now they're attacking the security agencies. They're trying to whittle down. They're trying to dehumanize. They're trying to humiliate the very arm of government that stands between them and their criminality. And we must not allow that to happen. We need to find out why they are doing this and stop them in their tracks before they cause more carnage, more damage to Nigeria's image, before they claim more lives, before they dehumanize our security agencies and make them really live out.
Staying with security matters, the chairman, Senate Committee on Army, Senator Ali Ndume, says the federal government can only set a timeline for the new service chiefs when adequate funding is made available to the Army. He made the comment shortly after a closed-door meeting with the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tahiru Ibrahim, at the Army headquarters, Abuja.
The Senate Committee on Army, led by the chairman, Senator Ali Ndume, are ushered into the conference hall of the Army headquarters by the Chief of Army Staff. After settling in, journalists are excused from the meeting, which continues behind closed doors. About an hour later, the meeting is open to journalists to get the outcome of their discussion.
The bottom line is that they must be given what they need in order to carry out the assignment, and that is money, that is equipment, that is personnel, and all those translates to money, 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 and that is why we are calling on the government to give the Nigerian Army the necessary support and tools to execute the mandate that is highly expected. What we are concerned about is for the Nigerian Army to get what they need in order to prosecute this war, so that next time we'll come here, we'll be talking about timeline, we'll be talking about tentative dates that we are expecting that Nigeria will be secured and be peaceful again.
Next is a meeting between the Acting Inspector General of Police, Usman Alkali Baba, and the Chief of Army Staff. The discussion focused on how the two security agencies can form an effective synergy to combat insecurity in the country.
The circumstances we are requires the military in this country, all over the states. And therefore, I need to come here and pledge for my unalloyed support, cooperation, collaboration, and synergy with the military to enable us provide the required environment for citizens of this country to go about their lawful businesses.
I want to assure you that the Nigerian Army, under my leadership, will continue to synergize and support the Nigerian police to build appropriate capacities so that we can collectively secure Nigeria in line with our constitutional rules.
The meeting between the Chief of Army Staff and the stakeholders in the security sector is expected to provide a roadmap for him in his quest to meet the task before him.
In part two, after the break, more on security as bandits burn down military camp in Niger. Plus, the Acting Inspector General of Police orders the withdrawal of senior police officers from the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder about top stories. Over 30 people killed in simultaneous attacks on 4 communities in 2 local government areas of Zamfara state. Unconfirmed number of students abducted after gunmen invaded a private university in Kaduna. Gunmen stormed police station in Uzunwani local government area of Enugu state, killed 2 personnel in their attempt to repel the attack. And at least 22 COVID-19 patients die in hospital in India after losing oxygen supply to their ventilators following a leak. Bandits have set ablaze a military base in Zazaga community of Munya local government area, killing 1 civilian and carting away a military vehicle. The gunmen, numbering about 100, invaded the school on motorcycles, shooting sporadically at everyone in sight before burning down the camp and vehicles belonging to the military. A civilian identified as Jacob Alta was killed in the gun battle before the soldiers eventually repelled the attack. The bandits were said to have lost some of their members. The latest attack on the military comes barely 2 weeks after bandits killed 5 soldiers, a personnel, the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, and a civilian in a military base located at Bassa community in Shiroro local government area of the state. And restructuring of the police continues. The latest, an order by the Acting Inspector General of Police, Usman Alkali Baba, which is for the withdrawal of senior police officers from the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC. In a letter directed to the chairman of the EFCC, it says senior officers from the rank of Chief Superintendent of Police to be released from the EFCC and report to the force headquarters. The police chief says the decision is informed by the current operational requirements of the police force. The directive comes barely 3 weeks after President Muhammadu Buhari appointed Mr. Usman Alkali Baba in acting capacity in less than a week after he ordered the disbandment of IGP monitoring satellite offices in Lagos and Port Harcourt. Over to Anambra State, where Governor Willie Obiano says 9 suspects have been arrested over the attack on former governor of the central bank, Charles Soludo. The gunmen attacked Mr. Soludo at a meeting with youths in Agwata local government area of the state last month, where they opened fire on his security details, killing 3 of the policemen. Also, the State Commissioner for Public Utilities, Emeka Ezenwanne, was also abducted and later released after 4 days in custody. Some more stories. The minority leader of the House of Representatives, Ndudi Elumelu, has joined calls for the removal or resignation of the Minister of Communications, Dr. Isa Pantami, over comments he made suggesting religious extremism and supporting terrorism. He raised the issue as a point of order, citing breach of his privilege. The lawmaker explains that the minister occupies a very sensitive position and this should not be overlooked. Our correspondent Terry Kumi reports.
Mr. Speaker, I have a petition. Lawmakers in the House of Representatives have begun reacting to the allegations of extremism against the Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Ali Issa Pantami.
Go ahead.
Mr. Pantami is facing major criticisms over his views from many years ago, which seem to show his support for terrorism, and his teachings showing religious extremism, which some Nigerians believe are capable of dividing the country and fueling insecurity.
That will be put in place.
Before Wednesday's plenary, for Chairman House Committee on Navy during an interaction with journalists, responds to questions on how and why the National Assembly missed the dangerous comments of the minister during his ministerial screening.
The National Assembly and DSS is not God. You will never get every information about every individual during confirmation. And if you want to hold DSS and National Assembly responsible, what of you as an individual? Over 180 million Nigerians, you were unable to. The announcement was made, the man was presented to the floor of the Senate, he was screened, and no individual out of over 180 million Nigerians was able to remember that comment made, to write petition to the National Assembly for them to act or not to act.
The Federal Republic
At the commencement of plenary, the minority leader of the House raises a point of order to support calls for the resignation of the embattled minister.
There had been insinuations that he has direct links and personally subscribes to the extreme Islamic beliefs of Al-Qaeda, Taliban, and Boko Haram sects. Mr. Speaker, I feel that it would be out of place for me to sit here and allow this chamber not to speak about it and totally call for his resignation or suspension.
I think you came under the wrong order because you have not stated how your privilege has been breached or the privilege of the House, but your point of order is well noted.
Mr. Pantami has since apologized for the comments, saying they were made while he was much younger. It is not clear if he would resign or be fired, as the presidency is yet to comment on the matter. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
Well, staying with the Pantami controversy, many would have thought that the growing controversy over his previous comments would form part of discussions at the Federal Executive Council meeting today, but the matter did not come up at all. The Council rose from its 42nd virtual session, presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari, maintaining its silence on the brewing storm over the Minister of Communications and Digital Economy. Reacting to a question on the Council's disposition towards the matter, the Minister of Information and Culture, Mr. Lai Mohammed, simply told State House correspondents that the issue was not discussed at the Council meeting. Back at the National Assembly, the Senate has approved President Muhammadu Buhari's external loan request of $1.5 billion and 995 million euros. President Buhari had written to the Senate in May 2020 requesting for the approval of external borrowing to finance the 2020 budget deficit, as well as priority projects to manage the COVID-19 pandemic. Our correspondent Linda Kibe has more.
The chairman of the Senate Committee on Local and Foreign Debts presenting a report to the Senate on President Buhari's request for approval of external loans. President Buhari is requesting the sum of $1.5 billion and 995 million euros. The loan is intended to finance the revised 2020 budget deficit, some priority projects to manage the COVID-19 pandemic and improve food security, as well as projects by state governments facing fiscal challenges because of the pandemic.
The committee most importantly notes that the indicative terms and conditions under which the loans will be borrowed. There are no unusual or onerous conditions attached, and the terms do not in any way compromise the sustainability of Nigeria's economy or impugn the integrity and independence of Nigeria as a sovereign nation.
However, some lawmakers have reservations and want to see the terms and conditions of the loan.
Within the 5 years moratorium, we are still going to be paying, servicing the interest on the loan before the repayment starts for 5 years, for 25 years. Who is going to bear the cost of the interest? We need to find out what is in the agreement.
The upper chamber thereafter approves the loan request.
Those against saying the ayes have it.
Meanwhile, the Senate also receives and considers the proposed budget for the Nigeria Customs Service for 2021. The upper chamber also increases the customs revenue target from 1.465 trillion to 1.678 trillion naira.
In 2021 fiscal year, the Nigeria Customs Service target was pegged at 1.65 trillion. The Senate committee deemed this target to be inadequate, while taking cognizance of the recently accepted Finance Bill of 2021. All this will significantly increase the revenue target of the Nigeria Customs in 2021 budget year.
But lawmakers question the appropriation for some line items in the budget.
Retirement benefits is paid to somebody who is retired. I have never seen where somebody is retiring and is being paid incentive of up totaling 2 billion to be paid to people who are already retiring as incentive.
Despite the concerns raised, the Senate approves 257.18 billion naira budget for the Nigeria Customs Service, with a personnel cost of 99.7 billion and capital cost of 137.9 billion naira. Linda Akibi, Channels Television News.
When the news at 10 returns, we have more stories from our Abuja studio. Plus, federal government restates commitments to the growth of MSMEs through effective policy implementation as it seeks to boost the nation's GDP. That's all business news. Do join us again. Welcome back. Let's now head over to our Abuja studios where Terry Kumi is standing by with more stories. Hello, Terry.
Hello, Millicent, and welcome to the nation's capital. The House of Representatives has mandated its Committee on Tertiary Institutions and Services to investigate the high acceptance fees charged by tertiary institutions in Nigeria, following a motion raised by Representative Julius Ihobere. The House is worried that the arbitrary high acceptance fees charged by some public universities on new students across the country has become a matter of great concern to many families. The Green Chamber is concerned that dire consequences of exorbitant acceptance fees in public universities have led to many indigent students losing their admission as a result of their inability to afford the fees.
While some of the institutions are charging minimal fees, others are charging astronomically, whereas others do not charge anything. While most institutions do not charge acceptance fee against tuition fees, thus raising the question as to whether the institutions were not established under the same laws. Further aware that if the situation is unchecked, acceptance fees may surreptitiously become the school fee, thus affecting the number of students that may gain entry into higher institutions in Nigeria. Worried that the consequences of exorbitant acceptance fees in our public universities have led to many indigent students losing their admission as a result of their inability to afford the initial acceptance fees.
The Federal Executive Council has approved an 8.39 billion naira augmentation for the completion of a section of the Sokoto-Makera Road, which cuts across Sokoto, Kebbi, and Niger states. Minister of Works and Housing Babatunde Fashola disclosed this to State House correspondents after the 42nd virtual Federal Executive Council meeting presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari at the State House. According to him, the request to augment the 13-year-old contract, which is 185 kilometers long, is owing to cost modification between 2012 to date and is necessary to enable speedy completion of the project.
Price changes essentially between 2012 when the contract was awarded and now. Materials and costs have changed, and also the scope of works of the 85 kilometers of the road has to be changed now from rehabilitation to reconstruction because it has deteriorated from when it was awarded 12 years ago. So Council approved this. And just for your information, there are two sections of the road because it comes all the way from Sokoto to Makera. The first section was awarded to Triacta. That section is 296 kilometers. We've completed that. We completed it just recently. The entire 296 kilometers is now motorable. About 100 kilometers of the second section, which is the subject of augmentation from Yauri to Makera, has been completed. So we just have about 85 kilometers to go.
President of the Nigeria Labour Congress wants states and the federal government to prioritize the welfare of pensioners. The Labour leader argues that the maltreatment of pensioners by the government is a major cause of corruption in public service. But the chairman, Senate Committee on Establishment and Public Service, insists that it is criminal for any governor to owe pensioners their entitlement. Both men were speaking at the Nigeria Union of Pensioners annual conference in Abuja.
This annual conference provides another opportunity for these senior citizens to reflect on life after service to their fatherland. One after another, participants at this occasion, led by President of the Nigeria Labour Congress, decry the way pensioners are treated in the country.
The condition of pensioners is something that is lamentable. And we cannot continue this way and expect a good country. And that's why the issue of corruption in our country cannot be wished away. People will help themselves because they realize that when it is time for them to go, there will be nothing to rely on.
The Nigeria Pension Reform Act of 2014 makes provision for contributory pension so that both the employer and the employee can save for retirement. However, non-compliance with this provision is making some pensioners retire into hardship.
After having taken the better part of your life, after serving with all the commitments, the determination, I had always argued and still argue, any failure by any government to meet up with the demands of the pensioners is criminal.
Pensioners are not being treated well at all. Many pensioners are suffering. As he mentioned, there are pensioners who are earning less than 5,000 every month, and that power of pension is 5,000 naira per month is not being paid as at when due.
The phrase, rest is sweet after labor, is the pensioners' motto. But in Nigeria, more really needs to be done to guarantee better life after service for employees.
There was a fire outbreak at the Katsina State House of Assembly this morning, affecting the council chamber. The incident is coming barely 30 days after the same scenario occurred at the Katsina Central Market, where items worth billions of naira were destroyed. According to an eyewitness, the fire was eventually put out by the joint firefighters and security agents stationed at the State House of Assembly, and no life was lost. The chamber was recently renovated by the Katsina State government. And that's all from Abuja. Up next is business news with Anne Waodo.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thank you, Terry. Hello and welcome to Business News. We begin with the statement by the federal government saying it is committed to the growth and development of micro, small and medium enterprises through effective implementation of policies and programs. According to a statement by the Minister of State for Industry, Trade and Investment, Ambassador Mariam Katagum, the move by the government will reposition the MSMEs to compete globally with their counterparts, as well as contribute significantly to the nation's gross domestic product. The minister stressed that Nigeria's SMEs contribute nearly 50% of the country's GDP and accounts for over 80% of employment. The minister also adds that in order to achieve sustainable growth and development of MSMEs, the federal government had recently approved the revised national policy on MSMEs, which will provide the framework to resolve the challenges faced by the sector. And talking about micro, small and medium-scale businesses, they have been challenged to deploy the use of intellectual property rights in their businesses to get value for funds invested. The acting head of the World Intellectual Property Organization, Mr. Oluwatobilo Bamudi, who was speaking at a news conference in the nation's capital, Abuja, explains that businesses can be strengthened to combat unfair competitive practices.
On the global scale, SMEs also make up around 90% of the world's businesses and employ around 50% of the global workforce, generating up to 40% of national income in many emerging economies. Now, while all these business ventures typically take an idea, mix it with ingenuity, and create a product or service that consumers want, many, as the DG has rightly mentioned, remain unaware of that they hold intellectual property or that it even has value. And this means that many are missing out on opportunities to improve their bottom line and to grow. Now, studies have shown that when businesses are IP savvy or understand their rights, they are able to acquire and manage their IP rights. They do even better. Now, IP commercialization is at the heart of this year's World IP Day celebration. And it therefore serves as a call to the attention and a call to the challenges that DG has mentioned that are faced by SMEs in our local economy and even maximizing their full business potential.
The Executive Secretary of National Sugar Development Council, Mr. Zach Adedeji, has assured that backward integration program for the nation's sugar industry will address the soaring unemployment rate and other socio-economic issues bedeviling Nigeria. The statement by the Council today says the Nigeria Sugar Master Plan, as presently structured, has what it takes to provide direct and indirect jobs for millions of Nigerians, both as skilled and unskilled workers. He has assured investors in the sugar sector of government support in terms of policy and technical assistance, while asking them to redouble their efforts in the implementation of the BIP for the sugar industry as Nigeria moves to attain self-sufficiency in sugar production. Let's head to the local equities market. It has maintained a positive posture today. The all-share index inched up 0.29%, mostly driven by interest in bank stocks. Ini John Mekwa has the details.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Positive sentiments were sustained in the market today, making it 3 straight bullish sessions. The bull dominated, even though volume, value and deals were lower than yesterday. The all-share index is still at the 39,000 psychological level point after adding 0.29%. And just like previous sessions, the banking sector led midweek's gains as investors' interest in GT and FBNH holdings pushed the counter up by 2.25%. Industrial goods was also up, while consumer goods wasn't so attractive. It went down by 0.35%. Top trade was led by Access, Fidelity, and in the third place, we had Mutual Benefit. For the top gainers, Cornell leads the pack, closing at 18 naira 57 kobo, up by 9.97%, while Guinness lost the most by 9.89% to close at 28 naira 70 kobo. Well, it's been a good outing so far, and this may just be the trend for the week. That's the Stock Market Report. I'm Ini John Mekwa.
Thank you, Ini. Let's hope that's sustained throughout the week. Let's talk about stocks in the United States. Gold had 2-day drop, posting positive investor sentiment in shares most sensitive to the recovery of the economy. Let's see the closing figures for today. That's Business News Tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawado. It's back to you, Millicent.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thank you, Anne. At least 22 patients at a hospital in India have lost their lives after they lost oxygen supply due to a leak. This happened while an oxygen tanker was refueling a storage tank at the Zakir Hussain Hospital in Nashik City. It is unclear how the accident happened and why it interrupted supply to patients, but officials said there was no oxygen flowing to ventilators for about 30 minutes, leading to the deaths. Here's Simon Pusey with more international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. US President Joe Biden has said the conviction of a former police officer in the killing of George Floyd can be a giant step forward in the march toward justice in America.
It was a murder in the full light of day.
However, he also said Americans can't look away thinking our work is done. There were celebrations on the streets after the verdict was read out.
We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 1.
A 12-member jury found Derek Chauvin guilty of all charges against him, 2nd and 3rd-degree murder and manslaughter. The former police officer was quickly led away from the courtroom in handcuffs. He will be sentenced in around 2 months and could receive a punishment of 40 years in prison. Meanwhile, hundreds of protesters took to the streets of Ohio after a police officer fatally shot a black teenage girl. Columbus police produced body cam footage which appears to show the girl attacking others with a knife before being shot. An inquiry is underway, with officials urging local residents to remain calm. The European Super League founder has said that the breakaway tournament can no longer go ahead.
I remain convinced of the beauty of that project.
Andrea Agnelli made the announcement hours after all 6 English teams pulled out. There were protests at Chelsea's game yesterday and widespread condemnation of the move across the board. The dramatic collapse of the multi-billion-dollar league comes less than 48 hours after it was first launched.
Mr. Speaker, I welcome the decision taken by the 6 English football teams not to join the European Super League. The announcement was the right result for football fans, for clubs and for communities across the country. One of the most worrying features about the European Super League proposals is that they would have taken clubs that take their names from great famous British towns and cities, English towns and cities, and turned them just into global brands with no relation to the fans, to the communities that gave them life and that give them the most love and support.
The European Union has clinched a deal on a landmark climate change law that sets new, tougher greenhouse gas emission targets.
It is indeed a historic moment.
Under a new law agreed between member states and the EU Parliament, the bloc will cut carbon emissions by at least 55% by 2030 compared to 1990 levels. The deal comes ahead of a virtual summit of world leaders later this week, where the US is expected to announce its own climate targets for 2030. Opposition politicians in Chad have rejected the army's appointment of President Idriss Déby's son to take over in the wake of his death. General Mahamat Idriss Déby is set to occupy the functions of the president and also serve as head of the armed forces. Meanwhile, traffic was backed up in the streets of Chad's capital city as people are fleeing at the prospect of violence after the president's death. The head of Egypt's railways has been sacked following the latest deadly crash on the network. Ashraf Raslan is among 10 top executives to be dismissed or reshuffled after the second major train derailment in less than a month. At least 23 people were killed and 98 others injured in the crash in the delta city of Touk, north of the Egyptian capital, Cairo. Britain's Queen Elizabeth, the world's oldest monarch, has turned 95. There will be no public celebrations as the monarch continues to observe 2 weeks of mourning after the death of her husband, the Duke of Edinburgh, and no gun salutes. Some of the Queen's family are thought to be with her at Windsor on her birthday. And finally, a Swiss robotics company is seeing rising interest in its latest invention, a fully automated bartender. Barney can mix 16 different spirits and 8 different sodas for customers who place their orders via their mobile phones, as well as offering beer and Prosecco. The robot, who can disinfect his own robotic arm, tells them their drink is ready via a large video display above the bar. All the versions can be loaded up with conversations, so Barney can not only mix drinks, but also make jokes. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon. The Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde has reiterated his commitment to sports development as a major tool to arrest youth restiveness in the state. Governor Makinde gave the assurance while receiving Team Oyo athletes at the just concluded 20th National Sports Festival at the Government House in Ibadan.
This government will continue to encourage sports development even at the grassroots level. That's why across the geopolitical zones of Oyo State, we are upgrading sports facilities in there. So we should start seeing the result from that investment. I'm sure we'll see instant results at the next National Sports Festival.
The International Olympic Committee, the IOC, says a potential state of emergency that could be imposed on Tokyo is unrelated to Olympic game preparations and is part of the government's plan to curb infections during Japan's holiday week. The latest rise in infections has stoked alarm, coming just months before the start of the Olympics and amid a sluggish vaccination rollout. Reigning champions Brazil have been drawn with 2016 runners-up Germany, Cote d'Ivoire and Saudi Arabia in the Tokyo Olympics men's football group stages. Host Japan, who last won a medal in the men's event with a bronze in 1968, will play France, South Africa and Mexico in Group A. Group C includes Egypt, Spain, Argentina and Australia, while Group B has South Korea, New Zealand, Romania and Honduras.
Egypt. C, Brazil.
Meanwhile, Group G in the women's tournament looks immeasurably mouth-watering as it features the two co-hosts of the next FIFA Women's World Cup, Australia and New Zealand. The group also gives USA the chance for revenge over Sweden, who eliminated them from Rio 2016 games on penalties. Host Japan will kick off the event against Canada, with Great Britain and Chile making up Group E. China, Brazil, Africa's sole representative Zambia and the Netherlands make up Group F. And that sports news is back to you, Millicent.
Thank you, Ayotunde. And the main news again. More than 30 people were killed in simultaneous attacks on 4 communities in 2 local government areas of Zamfara state. The state government said bandits who have refused to embrace the peace deal by the state government will bear the consequences. Also today, unconfirmed number of students abducted after gunmen invaded a private university in Kaduna state. And at least 22 COVID-19 patients died today in a hospital in India after losing oxygen supply to their ventilators following a leak. That's news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Walker. Stay safe. Have a good night.